It's December and another year is drawing to a close. As 2024 comes to an end, it's time, once again, for the Golden Clickbait Awards. That means we're going to crown the worst of the worst. Who's going to take the top prize? Well, stick around.
Ooh, there we go. There we go. That's a good fish. Holy cow. I'll be darned, it worked. Ooh, go ahead, buddy. Where are you going? Come on. That's a good fish. Oh, I got him by the back hook. Come on now. I'll have to play him out just a little bit.
And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to Lowbrow Fishing. It's time once again where we look at the worst lures of the entire year and crown a grand champion. Now this year's format is going to be a little bit different than we did in the past, where it was just a normal top 5 or bottom 5 countdown. This year, I'm taking the perennial number 1 of every single year out of the competition because it's not going anywhere. That bait is not ever going to catch a fish, and that is the Golden Clickbait. And the name Clickbait is kind of apropos, isn't it? It kind of fits in with what we're talking about. The old saying that lures are made to catch anglers, not catch fish. So from now on, this show will be known as the Golden Clickbait or the Clickies. So we're going to look at several baits from different types. We've got hard baits, we've got crankbaits, we've got soft plastics, and we've got topwater. We're going to be looking at all these baits in no particular order, and at the very end, we will be crowning a new winner for the entire year of 2024. Now, the requirement for these is I had to purchase these myself, and I had to fish them quite extensively. I'm not talking about 1 or 2 times. I'm talking about several days over the course of the year, if not more. Many hours devoted to trying to get these baits to produce anything, to try to get any sort of catches. Now, if you've been watching the channel for the entire year or for a while now, then you will notice and recognize some of these baits, and they won't be a surprise. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to the very first one. And it's kind of an interesting one because this is not one that I really expected to make this list. And this is the 6th Sense Busa worms. Now, I saw these in the store, and I thought that these looked really intriguing. I was very interested in them because of how they looked. It's a very interesting looking worm. It's a ribbed worm. It's very soft, very slinky, and obviously green pumpkin color. It's got a good material to it. It's not just going to fall apart on you. And I was thinking, well, this would work good on a wacky rig, on a NACO rig, on a shaky head. There would be so many different presentations a worm like this would work. I figured it's probably similar to a trick worm, and I really like those Zoom trick worms. But here's the caveat. This is actually where this worm fails, and it's those ridges. You see how those ridges are in there? It doesn't cast. No matter what I put this on, the casting on it was miserable. And whenever you're fishing shallow body water, whenever you're fishing clear water, you've got to make some long casts because those bass are looking right at my boat. So I've got to get it as far away from the boat or as far away from the bank as I can. Those ridges catch air worse than any skirt on any jig that I've ever seen. That means this thing is acting like a parachute in the water. And it's not just weightless presentations. It's not just wacky rigs. It's not NACO rigs. It's not Waco rigs. I'm talking even shaky heads with 1/8 ounce shaky heads, 1/4 ounce shaky heads. I've even put it on Texas rigs with a bullet weight, a 1/8 ounce bullet weight or a 1/4 ounce bullet weight, and the casting ability of these is just garbage. Now, that alone is not a reason for it to be on this list because it can have a terrible cast, but it can still catch fish. I've not caught any fish on these, and I've tried them, As you can tell, I've tried them many different ways. I've tried them on wacky rigs, Waco rigs, NACO rigs, shaky heads, Texas rigs. I've just not been able to get any strikes. So for that reason, they have to be on this list. They've got to be in the running for the worst bait or technique of 2024. Now next up is a topwater bait, and this is from my least favorite company, and that's Lunker Hunt. And that is this little spider here, this little black widow spider. And I also wanted to put in here that dragonfly that they make, that white dragonfly, but it melted, it disintegrated, and it dissolved in my tackle box, which I keep here in this room, which is air conditioned, and it still managed to disintegrate in that box. So it never caught a fish, it never worked right on the water. And this has a problem with melting as well. It's got some marks on it where it's been melting, and some of the legs are kind of bent up. But the thing about this is, it doesn't float. You would think, well, it's going to sit on the water like a bug, and you can twitch it around, and the bass are just going to inhale it. Seems like a good idea. And in theory, it is a good idea. But in practice, this thing is garbage. It does not work. And I was thinking, well, maybe it was the line. The line that I'm using is too heavy. Nope. I set this thing in the water without anything connected to it, and it still sank down. It doesn't fall in the water, but it sinks down below the body. It's not supported on the legs like you think. It sits underneath in the water. And that's not at all what I was expecting. And because of that, it doesn't work very well at all. It actually looks terrible in the water. It has no enticing action for those bass at all. It just kind of spasms in the water. It's really hard to describe. It just does nothing to attract those bass. Now, staying along the topwater, here's another perennial favorite on the list. And if you saw the list in years past, you'll recognize this one as it's still here. The Lucky Craft Sammy. Now, this thing right here, I was told it's probably this specific size that I'm using, but I don't have any evidence to the contrary. All I know is that this is supposed to be a walking bait. I love walking baits. I love a hidden spook. Everybody does. I like the Yozuri. I like the Berkeley Jaywalker. I like all types of walking baits except this one. The reason being is because of its number one failing. It does not walk. It doesn't. This thing, you cannot get it to walk straight in the water no matter what you do. I've tried it on windier days. I've tried it with the current, against the current. I've tried it on flat, slick, calm, and it just will not have a steady walking retrieve. And at one point, I had 3 of these. I'm down to just this one because the other 2, they broke. One of them, the line tie here snapped off, and the other one, the back cracked on it, and that was kind of my fault. I think it got too hot in the box, but either way, it was no loss because the thing never caught fish. I've had this thing for years now, and it's never caught a fish. So, of course, the Sammy has got to be on this list yet again this year. And next up is sort of a surprising bait. It's one that you probably wouldn't expect, and if you've been fishing for a long time, just like I have, this may be, well, it may be a bit of an outrage, but I'm putting it on here anyway. This Rebel Deep We Are. This is probably everybody's first deep diving crankbait. Whenever you're a kid, whenever you're fishing from your bank or your grandfather's boat or whatever, this was your introduction to deep cranking. And this is just a good standard color, especially in muddy water or when you've got some sharp chop on the water or, overcast skies or whatever. This is a great color. This is similar to what a lot of kids started out with. And you would think Rebel baits, proven winner, the Popar is the best popper ever, so that Deep We Are, those are great crankbaits. Here's the problem with these. The problem is, I got this out of the bargain bin at Walmart, right? And I've gotten a lot of good crankbaits. I get my Cotton Cordell Super Spots out of there. I've gotten some hula poppers and some jitterbugs out of there. So there are some good baits to be had. But this, and I have 2 other ones, one in a Fire Tiger color and one that's white, I can't get these things to tune. Not for anything. Now, whenever you're fishing a crankbait, obviously, a lot of times you're going to have to tune this line tie right here, right? We all know the deal. Needle nose pliers, barely, and I mean barely, 2 hairs and some air, moving that line tie just a little bit to get this bait to track in the water. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, when you are fishing a crankbait, you want it to track through the water nice and straight. However, a lot of times, out of the box, crankbaits need to be tuned or adjusted because they go to one side or do they go to another. That's not what this does. This goes around in circles and makes big arcing loops and all over the place. It's not even a useful hunting action like you would have with an old wiggle wart. This thing has got to be on this list, simply because this is not the same wiggle wart that I grew up with. This thing is garbage, and no matter how much I've tried, I cannot get this one or the other ones that I have to tune so they do not run properly. So it's got to be on this list. I have fished it. I've had that one for a few years. I fished it and I've tried it, but I cannot get it to tune. And if I can't get it to tune, if I can't get it to run straight how I want to, I would be happy if it ran kind of straight, but it's all over the place. So that one has got to be on the list. Now, every year it seems like we have some sort of wacky, crazy, different type of bait. You know, like the frog that I had that had the propeller legs on the back of it, you know, or it had like a whopper plopper tail end and that was from Thunderhawk. They don't make those anymore, obviously, because they were trash. But there's one that Savage Gear put out that I was very highly interested in. Seen some good reviews, heard a lot of good things about it. I was really stoked to try it. And that is, well, this guy right here. This duck, right? And this duck has these little feet back in the back that kind of spin around. It's got this treble hook. It's got one on the bottom, one on the top, and these kind of pop up. There's a little clip right here that holds it in place. You push it down. I don't know the sense of that. It's got one on the top and the bottom. And this is a fairly heavy bait. This is probably 1.5 ounces if I have to guess without remembering what's on the package. But I'll tell you what, the idea for it was to be some sort of buzz bait or whopper plopper style bait, because whopper ploppers and buzz baits get bites. And this might be something to show those bass something different. However, this thing is a piece of junk. Those back feet always get tangled in this hook, so it doesn't ever run right. It doesn't matter how you clip this thing. It doesn't matter what you do with this back hook. The best thing to do is probably just take that back hook off and hope they nail the thing so you can get the whole front hook. But I could never get a bite on this. I fished this for hours, over many days. My wife fished it because she was curious about it. We never got a single blow up on it, not once. And that's when we could get it to run properly, which was very, very rare indeed. So it's got to be on this list, right? Last but not least is the one that I'm sure all of you who are familiar with this channel, this is the one you guys were waiting for, I'm sure. And that is this stupid Vega frog. All year long, this thing gave me fits. This right here is probably the most infuriating bait I have ever tied on. And the reason being is, it's the worst of both worlds. It gets bites. It gets blow-ups. Huge blow-ups. If you're looking for a topwater frog, a poppin' frog, and they're normally black. I always paint the inside of mine red because I think it works better, so I mod them like that. But if you're looking for a frog, a poppin' frog, that's going to come through the weeds pretty good and it's going to draw strikes, this is definitely your deal. I've got the legs trimmed down on it, the little tassels here, I've got those trimmed down pretty good. And this thing gets blow ups. It had me excited from the very beginning. I was getting blow up after blow up after blow up. What I wasn't getting was hookups. I got 50, 60 blow ups on this thing over the course of 3 or 4 days. I hooked into 0 fish. I got 0 hookups with this thing. So I started to search online. I started to look at the reviews. You see it's got like a 4-star review on Tackle Warehouse or on Bass Pro or Academy. And you see that it's got highly reviews. But if you actually look at the reviews, what they're written, they say the same thing. Gets blow-ups, garbage hookup rate. I cannot hook into a fish. And I did everything I could to soften it. I did everything to bend those hooks. You see how bent out I bent those hooks? Just to give it every chance to succeed. And of all the blow-ups, of all the times that I fished this thing, because it's a tease, you're getting blow-ups. You want to tie it on because you're getting blow-ups. You're like, well, what can I do differently that I can catch just one fish? Well, the only fish this caught was my wife. My wife caught a nice fish with this frog, and that was the only one either one of us caught all year. So obviously for those reasons, this has got to be on the list. We got to crown a champion, right? Which bait for 2024 is going to reign supreme as the winner of the golden clickbaits, winner of the clickies? And well, there's no doubt to it. There's really not any doubt to it. It's got to be this Vega frog. This Vega frog is such a tease. It will drive you crazy. You will be grinding your teeth and you will be throwing your rods in the water at how infuriating this thing is to fish. And it's not just my word. I've talked to other anglers, leaving me comments on the videos that I did about this thing, looking at the reviews for this thing online, talking to other anglers on Reddit, on Instagram. They all pretty much have this same view of this thing, is it's a tease. You're going to get bites, but you're not going to get any hookups. So there you have it. Your 2024 worst bait of the entire year, the winner of the Golden Clickbait Award, 6 cents Vega frog. So there you have it, the 2024 clickies. And the grand champion of the Golden Clickbait, the 6 cents Vega frog. Did you agree with this list? Did you not like this list? What would you have done differently? Get in the comments below, especially if you have a list of baits that you thought were really terrible this year. We'll do it all again at the end of 2025. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.